Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Episode here in our long-running series, the Unported Playlist, where I take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. But it is April, and this is the last week of Unported Janktoberfest, because Wartran Troopers is a very, very strange and unexplainable game, but we will get into that shortly. Would you believe that I've been looking to buy this for the longest time, couldn't find a PCB, but now that I've played it on my computer, I think I can strike it from the list. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But what is Wartran Troopers? Obviously, right off the start, it is a light gun arcade game. And if you know anything about me or the channel, you'll know that it is my favorite genre of all time as far as arcade games are concerned. And I have the first game in this series, Warzaid, on the Konami Viper PCB. And I did a video on that a while ago. And I really do enjoy that game. So knowing there was a sequel, I 100% wanted to add it to my collection. Now functionally, Wartran Troopers is not a bad game. The light gun mechanics are sound, you get to shoot things, they blow up. It's got everything you want in a light gun game. The thing is, the tone of this game makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. We're not in actual combat, these are just training missions. The sergeant's training us to become warriors, but we are shooting other people and getting killed ourselves and destroying expensive military equipment along the way. The story of the game makes absolutely zero sense, and it is cheesy, intentionally so, but none of the humor seems to land whatsoever. It's that cheese that somebody thought was funny, but ends up just being kind of awkward and strange, and that's why it's on the Janktoberfest playlist, because it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's a weird, strange game that has some terrible voice acting, and some inexplicable things that just don't make any sense whatsoever. But we shot that first tank, so that's a good thing. And honestly, I'm not being mean to the game. Mechanically, it is a decent amount of fun. Now, I will say, it is quite cheap though. The minute you start this level and come around the corner, you have a projectile coming right towards you. And you will see in spots that if you bring your cursor down to the bottom of the screen, you will put a shield up. It's also how you reload your weapons. And when you have that shield up, you're basically invulnerable for so many shots. But honestly, the shield mechanic, sometimes you bring your cursor to the bottom of the screen and it just doesn't pop up, or sometimes you move your cursor even a millimeter and that shield ends up going away, leaving you exposed. It's not a great pacing of a game. Even if the light gun mechanics are sound, you'll see there that that shield just kind of screwed me over, and I took that hit when it didn't feel fair. But I think that's down to the fact that this game is in no way, shape, or form balanced for a single player experience. Because if you see at the bottom, you're going to see press start at any time for 3 other players. This is a 4-player game, and if you can't tell already by the aspect ratio, this uses 2 monitors side by side to give an ultra-wide appearance. But when you're playing as 1 player and you have the entire screen filled up with opponents you need to shoot, you really can't manage anything whatsoever. So it's definitely one of those things, you need to bring some friends along for the ride here. But there's the other instructor, and every character is just a character of themselves, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's unfortunate that the humor just falls flat, but that's what I'm saying about Wartran Troopers. Every single joke is unfunny. The biggest joke is the game trying to be funny, but not succeeding in it. And it's just a bummer because the first game was way more serious in tone and just had a lot more going for it, even if it's a much older game. Now, like I said, if you see a cabinet for Wartran Troopers, definitely play it. Functionally, it's good, and we're going to show you some more of the jank in this video. But it just let me down, and that's why it's on Janktoberfest. I wanted to love this game, and sometimes I do buy arcade games that I have never been able to play just based on me thinking I would like them, and I would say 9 out of 10 times that works out. This time it would have been an absolute fail had I actually picked it up. But the sergeant here is just a creepy, bald man that says, "You always look so beautiful." It doesn't contextually make sense. He looks more like an alien than an actual sergeant, and I don't understand what they were trying to do. Now, I will say though, the game has moments of brilliance. This nighttime level where you have this night vision scope on your gun and you're trying to sneak around and shoot without being caught, this is spectacular. It gives me a lot of Silent Scope vibes, and that's a good series from Konami. They did really good light gun games, and it's unfortunate that Wartran Troopers is so uneven, but what I do absolutely love is the soundtrack. That is great, so go ahead and listen, and I will be right back. Your turn is coming up. I have nothing bad to say about the soundtrack, and I will let you listen again in about 4 minutes because it's got some great tracks. And what it kind of reminds me of is Hogan's Heroes. Not just the music, but this entire game. It's trying to play comedy out of war, but where Hogan's Heroes did it so well, Wartran Troopers seems to be very uneven in what actually is funny, because not a single one of the jokes lands. I was never laughing along with the game, but I was laughing at the game many different times. Now, I did a video last year on Rambo from Sega, the Like-On arcade game, and that game was intentionally funny, but the humor made it work. It was campy, it was schlocky, but it all added to it. Wartran Troopers seems to try to do something like that, but basically fail at every single turn. But let's move on into some more of the gameplay, because that's the interesting thing about Wartran Troopers. From a gameplay perspective, it's a competent B+ tier Like-On game. From an actual kind of narrative or settings perspective, it's like a hard D-, honestly, in my opinion. And sometimes the game just doesn't seem to know what it wants to do. It wants to bring you on this truck section, and it's giving you so many different things to aim at. It's just not balanced for a one-player experience. So definitely, like I said earlier, bring some friends along for the ride. This does work on Teknoparrot, and you can get more than one person playing at a time. I tested it before I made that comment. So this is something you could play on your television and enjoy with friends. Or if you're like me and you have an ultra-wide monitor for your studio setup, you can play this at its native resolution, and that is so much fun. Getting that ultra-wide aspect ratio out of it, it's not something that every single arcade game ever does, and I do love Wartran Troopers for it. And something like this helicopter boss battle where you have to fight your way up a building and shoot the woman in the helicopter, this is when the game shines. If the game was always like this, I'd be saying it's an A game, and I would be 100% finding a PCB for it. It's just so uneven, and that's the unfortunate part. For every 5 minutes of greatness, you get 5 minutes of weirdness. It just doesn't seem to know what it wants to do. And I will say graphically too, I do like the cell shading kind of aspect to it. It does lend itself to be really fun of a look, and I get that it was supposed to be part of that comedy as well. It's just a little bit hit or miss. Things like this, one of your drilling structures out in the snow with hot pants and a tank top on. I know what Konami was trying to do there. It just makes me kind of shake my head more than it does laugh at the game. But you do get special bonus missions as well. We have to go in here and rescue hostages, and it is fun. I don't want to drag on this game too much. It is just totally janky. I was so excited to play this. I had expectations built up in my head that just did not live out when I finally did get the chance. But again, like I said, the soundtrack is spectacular, 10 out of 10, so go ahead and listen for like 35 more seconds, and I will be right back. Enjoy. The soundtrack's dramatic and it's fun, and I do love it. It's just such a strange game, and that's what I think I keep coming back to, is that this game had the possibility to be amazing, as the original Warzaid is a totally fun game, and it's interesting that they went with this tone for the sequel, because while the first game could be goofy in spots, you were fighting skeletons in army helmets, it wasn't pushing this hard into the weird territory. And it's also such a strange setup that all of this is a training mission, and they tell you that from the beginning. You're not fighting an army that's against your country, you're not fighting your enemy, you're fighting just training missions, and that is so strange. And the complete lack of violence, it seems like they were just too scared to make an actual light gun shooting game and just went with this theme instead. But that's been happening for a while now. Even the House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn just takes all the violence out of it compared to the original House of the Dead where you were blowing holes through zombies. Now they just kind of dematerialize and fade away, and that's part of why I dislike Wartran Troopers. I want this to feel like a real game and not just this training simulation. And in the later stages here towards the end of the game, it just gets incredibly hard. The balance is way off, and I'm just playing this at normal via the test menu. And then it gives you stuff like a rocket launcher that you could use somewhere else, but the minute you get up here, there's a bullet traveling towards you. You take that hit and you completely lose that rocket launcher immediately, and that's just bad design. This game could have been great. It has all the trappings of something that I would love. It's a light gun shooting game, it's got some great action, it's got a fun soundtrack, and the mechanics when they're doing it really well, like that helicopter boss battle, are spectacular. It's just the unevenness in the game that really let me down. And this is the first time with a light gun shooter from Konami I can say I don't love it, nor would I add it to my collection. But being able to play it on Teknoparrot is amazing, and if you want to check this game out, you 100% should. And if you do see an arcade cabinet for it in the wild, definitely play it, because I have never seen one. I'm not even sure if they really came to North America, but maybe if you're in Europe or Japan watching this episode, give it that play. But it's one of those things. Sometimes I see a game and I think to myself, I need that, I want that, I need it for my arcade collection. I'm going to love it. And 9 out of 10 times I am correct and it is in my permanent collection. Had I bought a PCB for this game, I probably would have moved it on to another collector who may have enjoyed it a little bit more. But I will say the final boss battle is epic, and the actual theme song for Wartran Troopers is hilarious. It basically explains the entire tone of the game better than I could in 12 minutes. So after the slight credits for me roll, I will give you the full intro in the end of the video. Unless it comes up with a copyright strike, then I will have pulled it. So if you don't see it, that is why. But it's an interesting game. It's fun in spots, and if you have more than one person playing at the same time, you're going to have a lot more fun. It was borderline great, but it snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. What that means is the design, the theming, the elements were all there in a way, but somehow they made a few mistakes and got it wrong at the last possible minute. But that is Wartran Troopers, and this is the end of unported Janktoberfest for games that I like in some sort of way but are super janky. I'll be back with normal unported next week. I'll have videos throughout the week as well, but we are done here. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Wartran, the training camp from hell and pride of our National Defense Board. Prepare for the harshest training of your lives! Sir, yes, sir!